Hello everyone, welcome back to Faith for Dummies. I'm Izzy and I'm here with Rob. How are you, Rob?
Hi Izzy, hi everyone. Same as every week pretty much. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. Should we show them behind the curtain and tell them that we record more than one episode in a day? And so that's why we're always the same a few episodes in a row. We're always having a good day or a bad day or a tired day, more than one episode in a row.
Yeah, we generally do 2 at a time, kind of helps save timings and stuff, doesn't it? And then, yeah, we're like, how are you? I'm still good.
I'm as good as I was 10 minutes ago. Great.
Except you guys don't know that.
Cool. Right, Rob, what have we got this week?
So this week, Izzy, I have interviewed one of my previous young people, nearly said old, but they're not old. And I've asked him, he's called Daniel, all about his testimony. And it's a great interview. I really enjoyed being able to catch up with him. And when he started my youth group, he wasn't a Christian. So that's quite an exciting story. And I'm just looking back, glad that I got to play a little part and just see him flourish, really. So I really hope that you enjoy the interview. He's got a dummy moment to share for us as well.
Great. Let's go and listen to what he's got to say.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks, Izzy. I'm joining my friend here. Why don't you just go ahead, introduce yourself and tell us what you spend a lot of your time up to at the moment.
So hi there, I'm Daniel. I know Rob because he was my youth leader back at my home church and sort of grew up going to youth things led by Rob. But now, so I live in Hull. I work at the university as an administrator.
That's right. And that's quite a new thing for you, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, that is quite a new thing. So I did work for my church up in Hull for a little bit until recently, and then recently got this job at the university, which it's my second week of now, and I'm enjoying it. It's fun.
Wow. When I started in my role, I seem to remember us playing a lot of dodgeball at our youth club. That's what my memories.
Yes, that I have a lot of maybe not so fond memories of that because I was very competitive and I was a very sore loser at the time.
Yeah.
But also fond memories. I loved. I never play dodgeball anymore, so I really missed that.
Yeah, brilliant. So, Daniel, I nearly called you a nickname there because that's how I know you by. This podcast is called Faith for Dummies. We call it AKA Us because Izzy and I are the original dummies. But we have asked if you have a dummy moment that you wouldn't mind sharing with us, please. So we feel like you are one of us.
Yeah, I had to rack my brains for this one, but it was something that happened fairly recently. Back when I worked for my church in Hull, we went and visited sort of like a sister church, like a partner church in Scarborough. And the guy who's the minister is also the bishop of our sort of like our family of churches. He's one of the bishops, and he was showing like our church staff team around the building and like giving us a bit of a talk and stuff and sort of explaining a lot of things to do, what they do with the space and how they deal with the church, like changing like the changes of the church recently and how that's impacted them. And a serious chat. And as he was sort of talking in like the main sort of church meeting space, another one of the sort of ministry trainees was passing around these magnetic fidget toys. So he had them and played with them a lot, and he gave a couple to me, and they're like sort of little magnetic balls. So they're great fun. Until I was playing with them, and then I dropped them in front of absolutely everyone, and I just pretended it wasn't me, and it didn't go very well because once they picked it up, like a couple of them gathered the balls and picked them up, and then handed it back to me, so everyone knew it was me. And I never felt like a dummy as much like in my life as I did then. So that's my dummy moment.
Oh, brilliant. They're those ones that make those really like annoying noise when they like clang together, right?
No, actually, because it was a bit softer than that.
Okay.
So thankfully it didn't do that because it was more subtle. But then I dropped them, so it was less subtle.
Oh, so your dummy moment is you drop something?
Yeah. I mean, it was in front of absolutely everyone. Which is the more mortifying thing. Yeah, so there was that. It was with like 20 odd people there, so that's why it was embarrassing.
Yeah,
and some of them I knew.
Oh yeah,
and some of them I'd never met before, and that was their first impression of me. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations! You can now be one of us as a dummy.
Certified dummy, love it.
So, Daniel, we have invited you on the podcast to share a bit about your testimony, how you came to become a Christian, and then a bit more from your life, really. And we just wanted to kind of, hand over to you and just tell us about your testimony. Tell us how you became a Christian. The floor is yours.
Amazing. Thank you, Rob. So, a bit of background for me. So, in my family, I've got my mum, my dad, and a younger brother. Actually, none of them are Christians, but my grandparents and my mum's side are Christians. So, I had sort of a lot of knowledge and understanding of God growing up. That I believed there was a God, and I knew like the Ten Commandments and a lot of stories from the Bible from my grandparents. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of sort of understanding. I didn't have anywhere near as much understanding as I do now about what God is like and what that means for me. So I was introduced to Rob's church actually before Rob was at the church.
It's true.
Yeah, so I started going to the youth group when I was 12, and I was invited by a friend called Ben, and he doesn't go to the church anymore, and I don't believe he's a Christian, but he was one of my best friends in middle school, and he invited me along because he used to go along, and it was like a pancake day sort of celebration. It was just a really nice, chill youth evening, and got to meet some people that I obviously spent some time with, some people I did know, got to meet some people that I didn't know from the church, and it was a really nice time, and I really enjoyed it, so I kept coming back. So that was about the age of 12, and sort of between the age of 12 and the age of about 17, I kept going to those youth groups. Youth Cafe was what it eventually became, and that was when Rob took over. And then, so through that, so I had the occasional Bible study, but just spending time with my friends, which was really nice, and got to, as more people started coming, got to make more friends that went to church. So that brings me to when I was 17. So again, I went on and off, and when I was 17, I started going more regularly, just to spend more time with my friends, because I started to spend more time with my friends at school that also went to that group, and therefore their friends that went to the group from church. I then went to church on a Sunday for the first time, October 2021, sorry. And that was because I did A-level sociology, and we had a beliefs in society sort of module unit, and that really interested me, really, because I'd been to my grandparents' churches before, but I hadn't really sort of gone to like a Baptist church, and I was quite interested really in terms of what it would be like because of that interest from the sociology side, and I knew my friends would be there, so I was like, why not? I'll give it a go. So I went, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed seeing my friends, and I was like, these people are singing, praising God, and that's really cool. It's not for me. It's cool, but it's not my cup of tea. But I still kept going, and I kept going more regularly. At the time, I was in a relationship with someone who wasn't a Christian. So I wasn't a Christian myself, and they were sort of holding me back from going to church. And once that relationship ended, I started going to church more, and I went every week. And again, really enjoyed spending time with my friends. And I then was like, they have a youth study, like a Bible study on a Thursday night. So I started going to that as well to see my friend, and it was, I think, through that was sort of the big breakthrough for me, because I just got to see my friend talking about the Bible, praying, and sharing their thoughts and what they talking about Jesus, like most importantly for me. And I think that final one really struck me, because obviously they themselves had a relationship with Jesus, and I didn't feel like I had a relationship with Jesus, and I wanted one. So it was sort of through a combination, a lot of the different factors of that led me to become a Christian. So then once I was like, I might be a Christian. I'd say it, like I do believe, but like I don't know lots and lots and lots about the Bible like my friends. So I remember in the summer of 2022, I was about 18, and I met up with you, Rob, for a coffee, didn't I? And chatted about baptism. And it was really interesting what you said to me at the time about what Jesus said about believing. Jesus said, believe and be baptized. And that really struck with me. A lot of my friends who'd been Christians for many years hadn't been baptized. They were, they had that as they saw that as a big step to make and a big decision, which obviously it is. It's if you grow up with your parents being Christians, it's a big decision to make and say, this is my faith. But for me, obviously, because my parents weren't Christians, that wasn't the predicament I was really in. So I then felt, because I believed, I should be baptized, and that's what I did. I was baptized sort of a few months after that conversation, and my mum and my brother came, and they had my testimony, which was terrifying, and it was a really good time. So I think that's when I'd say that's the sort of journey that led me to being a Christian. And at that point, I was very young in my faith, didn't know a lot of the Bible, but obviously you don't need to know everything to believe to be a Christian, because it's that faith in Jesus. And as long as you know what Jesus has done for you in your life, like that is enough. Trusting in that is enough. Obviously, it's very good to know the Bible and read it and study it and meditate on it, but you don't have to know every single little detail, remember it perfectly to be a Christian. That's not what it is. And it took me a while to realize that, actually. And so after that, about 2 weeks after being baptized, I had a very big life change, and I went to university. So I moved up to Hull, and so quite a fair way from home, and then I had to make a big decision. Not necessarily a big decision, but it was a big step in sort of choosing to find a church and searching for a church in Hull. And that was something that it was a tough process, but I'm really, really thankful that I did sort of get stuck in. A lot of people from my home church from back home had said to me, just whatever you do when you go to uni, just get stuck into the Christian Union, to a church. And I followed that advice. And I'm really grateful to everyone who gave me that advice, because it really helped me in my faith, getting stuck into a church where I have a lot of people speaking the wisdom of God in my life really helped me to grow and mature as a Christian quite quickly, and helped me to grow and trust in God more.
Yeah, and is that the same church that you're still at?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, brilliant. That's really cool. And what about then? So you've mentioned a bit about being at uni and getting stuck in at church and CU. What about after that time a little bit?
Yeah, so university was great. Overall experience, I really enjoyed it, but I did find it really difficult. I did start having a lot of really, really bad episodes of anxiety in particularly in my first year of uni, where I'd often have panic attacks for hours at a time, and would just get really worried and stressed and worked up about a lot of different things. And I think that is when my faith in Christ was really, really tested. When you're worrying that much and about specific things, and in the moment, it's really hard to then, in that panic, to look for God. But a lot of people surrounded me and spoke biblical truths into each situation. And sometimes I listened, sometimes I really didn't. But one thing that was really helpful in that, for those of you who have read it or haven't read it, haven't heard of it, there's a book in the Old Testament of the Bible called Ecclesiastes. I really encourage you to read it. It's a very different book to a lot of them, and it is tricky to read alone, or certainly without a guide. But we did a Bible study in my student group on Ecclesiastes, and it was really, really helpful in terms of putting those things I was worrying about in perspective. Those things that there will be a time where it ends. There'll be a season. There's different seasons in life, and that time of my life was a particularly anxious season. But Ecclesiastes referred to these seasons end, and that anxious period did end. And I have definitely had periods in my life where it's been anxious since then. I've been really anxious and worried and worked up about things, but those things go. But the love of of Jesus in those situations never leaves.
Yeah.
So that really, really encouraged me.
Yeah, what's really cool is the word Ecclesiastes has got the word eccles in it, which is a place in Manchester where I lived to do my year out. And it kind of means like place of worship or a congregation like church and whatnot.
Cool. That's really cool. That's really cool to like you're able to link that.
Yeah, it is. So what was it like, do you think, now looking back perhaps, growing up in a family that wasn't Christian?
Yeah, I think at first, certainly when I started to, grow in my relationship with Jesus, and when I started to really take my faith in Christ seriously, I found it really hard actually. So the church I grew up in or sort of went to at home, there's a lot of families and all of my friends at the time, their parents went to church. And a lot of the times those families would sort of do things together and like outside of church or after church. And it was really tough. I felt quite left out in parts because obviously I didn't have Christian parents. I didn't have parents that went to church. So it was a lot harder to then, other outside of a Sunday service to really meet other Christians and grow in those sort of like, I guess, in those group settings. And yeah, I felt really left out. But I think that's when going to uni was actually really helpful because there's a lot of people in my situation whose parents weren't Christian, and sort of very much the demographic, if you like, of that church, of my church in Hull, was very different. And I think I found it a lot easier then to fit in and to, yeah, like I didn't feel like I was the odd one out for not having Christian parents. And I guess I think another thing that was a bit tricky was differences. I think as I grew in my faith, I found that with my parents, there's a lot more points of contention and things we maybe disagreed on or didn't see eye to eye on. And I definitely found that hard in my first year of university, especially having lived independently and on my own, then coming back and adjusting to that whilst also adjusting to being changed and being different because Jesus doesn't leave us the same. We're not left the same. He grows us throughout our life, and I definitely felt that particularly in my first time at university. That was quite tough, but I think on the plus side, like it's really challenged me actually when I'm home to try and share God's word with my parents and speak about the Bible, but also it's really cool how I'm going home in different periods. So maybe around Christmas time and then a gap and then I'm back at Easter and then I'm back in Hull and then I come back in the summer. And I don't know if they've seen much of a change, but I'd like to say that I can tell God has changed me drastically from when I first left for university. I guess my hope and prayer is that those points, those intervals, they would have seen me grown in my faith and really think about it. And okay, like, why are you less? Why is he shouting less? Why do we maybe argue less? How come he does this and that in a different way? I think it's really cool how God has grown me, and I really do hope that they're able to see that.
They can see.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Like I've met your mum a few times. She's really lovely. I once met her in Lidl. Once you'd just gone off to uni, we had a long chat all about you.
Good things, I hope.
A mixture. No, good things. Yeah, good things. So just a couple of more questions then, really. What was good for you? Who invested in you? What really do you think made the difference for you, particularly on first coming to know Jesus?
I think I had two close friends in my sixth form, Daniel and Robbie, and another Daniel. And they were really, I think, instrumental in terms of when I was very early in on my faith, because often we'd be hanging out as a friend group at school, and most of them were non-Christians, but there's me, Daniel, and Robbie who were Christians. I guess seeing how they were in particular situations and how they acted, I guess, really helped me in terms of acting or I guess living out my faith more. Sorry, in those group situations, especially I know I had a really bad habit sort of early on in my faith of still swearing a lot, and I know Robbie would always call me out on it in those group situations, and I used to get really annoyed. Like, oh, why are you calling me out on that? Like, other people are doing it. That's so unfair. But now I'm like really thankful because it's not a problem anymore. Anyway, near as much. And it's just little things like that have really helped me in my faith. And okay, like, how should I be living for Christ in group situations, and what does that actually look like? I think was really helpful having that, I guess, correction and that encouragement early on in my faith. I think was really, really helpful.
Yeah, brilliant. And I know Daniel and Robbie, and they're great guys. And I can just imagine Robbie correcting you for swearing and what that would have been like. But as you said yourself, like, that would have been really good for you and not a problem anymore. And also there's like a verse in Proverbs, isn't there, about like iron sharpening iron. And we need those people around us to disciple us, especially when we're starting off as new Christians, and to help us. So that's just really cool. Finally then, is there anything else you want to say to our listeners?
I guess just know, like, if you find yourself in a similar situation, if your parents aren't Christians, or maybe one of your parents isn't a Christian, you're not alone, even though it might feel really tough. I know I felt quite outnumbered in my family, being the only Christian, and I still do from time to time. But it's remembering that, number one, you're not alone. There's other people probably in your church, if you're stuck into a church, or people that you know that are in a very similar situation and that have this very similar struggle. So don't be scared to reach out to people. It's scary, but reach out to people, other Christians, to really speak into your life and encourage you. Particularly if you're off to university soon in the next year or so, just get stuck in. That's something that was really helpful to me. But also, just, I think the main point, God is not a distant God. He's very close, and I've definitely felt that in my life, and particularly in my journey up until now. I know he's going to continue to be close to me, but he's remained close and faithful. God, he's not distant. He's very much been right beside me as I've grown, and that growth has just not been a coincidence at all. So just remember that God is close, and he will grow and change you. I definitely found that I grew a lot after that really tough period with my anxiety, and I think God will use maybe tricky things to really grow you as a result. But God knows what he's doing, and he's right beside you as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think if you're going through that, and either Daniel or Izzy or myself, and you want to chat, like, reach out to us individually if you know us in person, and we're more than happy to meet. And I feel blessed to have been part of your faith journey, especially at the start. And I got to pass the baton on, not just me, lots of people got to pass the baton on to your network around you in Hull, and that's been really good. And it's just been really nice to see you grow. So final question from me. When this podcast comes out, are you going to send it to the 2 friends you've mentioned and your family?
Oh, yes. I think that's tricky. I just don't like videos of myself, really, or recordings of myself. So it'll be tricky too, but I think it'll be good. Yeah, I'm really glad I've been able to chat to you, Rob, today about my testimony. This is a very much more comprehensive version of my testimony. It's very, I don't think I'm missing much. So yeah, I will definitely send it to my friends and my family.
Well, thanks very much, Daniel. We really appreciate you coming on. I'm going to hand over back to Izzy and Rob in the studio.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for telling us your testimony, for sharing your story, and a bit about all those things that have happened since you became a Christian. Rob, was there anything in particular that really struck you? I know that you've known Dan for years, so I'm sure there's lots of things, but anything in particular?
I think with everything going on in the news at the moment about quiet revival and young people wanting to know faith and Christian talk, which is like just Christian content on social media, I think it's really great to kind of have seen that in Dan's life over the past few years, and him just really be kind of exposed with the culture of church and youth group, because that's kind of similar to me and my faith being taken more seriously. And just, really thinking that's really cool, and how, and particularly the culture thing, really, and how being so welcoming and so nice to people as Jesus was, and having food with people has played a big part in his testimony. So that's what stood out to me. What about you, Izzy?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. Like I was just thinking back to when I met Dan on camp. So it must have been almost 2 years ago now. I think it was just after he'd gone to uni, and it's just really, I didn't realise he'd only been a Christian for such a short amount of time, and he was just so like invested and excited about Jesus, and that's really cool to know that actually, he hadn't been in that space for much time, but he'd obviously really delved into it. It was really lovely to listen to this testimony. It's very much like my own, and I have a real heart for people who grow up in non-Christian homes and then kind of find Jesus for themselves when they're almost an adult. And it's really interesting kind of how you bring that home with you. And so hopefully that's an encouragement to some of you who are maybe discovering this or have discovered who Jesus is, but maybe at home it's not something that you can talk about massively openly, or I hope this was an encouragement. I'm really encouraged by how he speaks about his family, how he wants them to know Jesus, and just the changes that God has made in him to kind of reveal in him that something has changed now that he knows Jesus and has the Holy Spirit. So what an encouragement.
So what are we looking at next week, Izzy?
So next week we're going to tackle quite a big topic in a very short space of time. We're going to talk about suffering and we're not entirely sure where that conversation will go yet, but what it means to be a Christian and to kind of see suffering in the world and how to cope with that and how to line that up with who God is. So big episode next week. Maybe we'll make it a slightly longer one, but if you have any questions that you want to ask us about that, do feel free to comment on Instagram or send us a message, and we'd love to try and tackle some of those things.
Absolutely. That's it. I think we will see you next week. Bye, Izzy. Bye, everyone.
Bye.